My name is Eric Evanson. Thank you for joining us this morning for this month's installment of Tips and Tricks. Today we'll be giving a little insight into Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager by our Director of Digital Marketing, Matt Caesar. After Matt's presentation, we'll open the floor to questions you have, whether they're regarding today's topic, your website, or the internet in general. On this call, we'll have designers, developers, marketing specialists, and project managers, so we should have you pretty well covered. So, Matt, I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Okay, I'm going to start out with just a simple definition. Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is a free tool provided by Google that allows you to manage, deploy marketing tags, snippets of codes, or tracking pixels on your website or mobile app without having to modify the code. A huge benefit to Google Tag Manager is, one, it's free, and second, that you, the marketer, can manage the code on your website. As I mentioned, manage your code. It's mainly managing the snippets and like a Facebook pixel or a pixel you use for conversion tracking in Google Ads. This is a great way. Once you get the initial code added from Google Tag Manager, you have full control over those. You don't have to pay development to come in and add these extra pixels, tags, snippets of JavaScript. You could do it on your own. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into Google Tag Manager. I'm currently in one of our clients' accounts, and I'd like to thank them, TSI USA. They allowed us to jump on this website and practice on it in front of you guys. So we're going to go ahead and start by going through a little bit of the settings that you utilize in Google Tags to make all this happen. You have the main interface, and then you have tags. Tags are going to be tags are snippets of code or tracking pixels from third-party tools. These tags tell Google Tag Manager what to do pretty much. So a lot of the examples of tags would be like Google Analytics Universal Tracking Code, or the new Google Analytics GA4 property that was currently rolled out. Actually, it was rolled out last month, so it wasn't current. It was rolled out the 14th last month. It's been in beta and now it's live. So that's something that I would recommend you getting on your website. You could add AdWords remarketing code. It's very easy to do that. AdWords conversion tracking code. And a lot of that can be done just by hitting this little new button here, going to tag configuration. And then you have all these options of what you could set up. Google Tag Manager is from hooking up heat maps to your website, to going back to just doing events on your website, where you could hook up an event to send pretty much something to Google Analytics that enhances your reporting, which we'll go over here in a little bit. The second would be triggers. Triggers are the ways that the tags fire. This is what tells Google Tag Manager what to do. It's if a page is loaded or if a button's clicked, this is where you tell it, we want it on this page. The button element property is this, or the click ID or the page path is this, and then you make the tag fire. So you're communicating to Analytics or Google Ads or wherever else you're hooked up to. Variables are additional information that Google Tag Manager may need for your tag or trigger to work. These are a few of the different tags that I've turned on for these clients, or for this client. I usually come in here into the configuration and check certain ones, because I've really only set up certain ones for clients, so I don't dive in and add all of these for confusion once they take it over. And then last, I guess before I jump into just creating some tags and triggers, the benefits of this. The main benefit is that it's free, and it eliminates that cost of development jumping in and helping on your website. It's great for tracking events such as PDF downloads, outbound link clicks, button clicks, and it's great for figuring out if people are actually finishing your call of action. If you have a call of action at the bottom of the website, you need to know if people are scrolling to the bottom of your website and clicking that. Otherwise, that call of action is invisible to a user. Some of the drawbacks of Google Tag Manager is that you got to have a little technical knowledge. You got to understand the basic functions of mainly basic code. You got to know what to look for when you're trying to hook a variable up to this. or a trigger. I apologize. So let's go ahead and jump in here, and we're going to set up a few for this client. So I'm going to first come in here, and I'm going to hit preview, which is going to open this. This is the new layout. It used to open all in the same window, but they just changed this recently. So once you hit start here, it's going to run this path until it says completed. So once you continue, now your website's open. So everything on this website can now be tracked. So if we click this request a sample, it does an action on the page. If we go back to this where it's evaluating what's happening on your website, we add a click. It shows you every variable in that click. So now we know where our click target, our click text, click URL, everything that we could track on this to send some type of conversion back to Google Analytics, Google Ads, wherever you're trying to send that. So now we're going to go back into Google Tag Manager, and I'm going to pull some of these windows to the other side because it's kind of hard to do this on one monitor when I'm doing it. And we're going to start creating a trigger. We're going to track by element, some clicks, and then that's where this is used. So we're going to go through here and find something. All these, if you look at these, they're exactly the same as what's here. So for this one, go back. We're going to look at request a free sample. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the home page for every spot to make sure that's the only spot that's on. Otherwise, it gets a little trickier to track this, and I might jump on another page so it doesn't get too confusing. Let's go ahead and jump on one of their inside pages for now, because that is a different ball game. Because when you have these multiple spots where you have this exact same pretty much button over and over, this is where dev would have to be involved, because this little spot would have to have its own, which that didn't help you guys much, would have to have its own event element. It would have to be a distinct button of its own. You can't have multiple, otherwise you really can't track where the person clicked. If they clicked in the header, if they click in the middle of the page or the bottom of the page, you'll never know. So let's jump on to sustainability and see if they have anything on here. They do. Request a sample. Let's go ahead and click this, and let's get all the elements for this. So since it's the only one with this text on the page, I'm sorry, guys. I have a keyboard that has a mind of its own. So we'll walk through that again. I went to the sustainability page. Looked for a button that we could track. We have that one button that now we could go in here and look at our last click. So before we loaded a new page, we made a click action that made this page load. So we're going to go here and look at the variables that loaded during this. We have, like I said, the request sample that we could track, which is a very easy one to track. If we go back to that page, there's two of them again. Hey, we'll start out by this. I'm just going to get it going so you guys could get at least a understanding. So the click text, we're going to add equals request a sample. Then we're going to add an and statement. So we want click text equals this and the page URL equals this. name it so you have to keep a naming hierarchy, because I'll show you an account later on and you'll see why. Once you get so many tags in here, it gets really confusing if you don't have a proper naming hierarchy so you know where you're at. So I'd even go a step further and put requests a sample on sustainability page. And then when we create the tag, I want this text. So I'm going to copy it in here, or I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go back to tags. And now I'm going to create a tag to work with that trigger we just created. So I'm going to go into new. I'm going to name it. And then I want to track by elements. Or I'm sorry, I'm using Google Analytics, and we're doing by events. We're tracking the elements as part of the triggers. I'm sorry. So now we're tracking. The category is going to be buttons or button. The action is click. And the label, I usually keep the same label because we want to know what it is. This is what's going to tell you in Google Analytics what this click was from. I always give it a value. It's easier with e-commerce because you can usually give it a monetary value. You give it something that's related to that, or you could get development involved and you could actually get it. So e-commerce is working. So you're pulling exact numbers in here to see what this organic traffic is actually spending or buying from you. You got to make sure you add your Google Analytics settings and then hook the trigger together. I always hit preview again just because this new setup it doesn't seem to always catch on if you don't refresh it. Now that it's loaded, let's go to this page. I clicked on that, so now this is going to load a new page. If we go down here, click request a sample, go back here, there should be a click. Our tag fired. So now when somebody clicks on that button on that page, that tag's going to fire. The bad part is this is just SEO advice. If you're ever creating buttons or links on your website, try to make them unique. Don't add the same button over and over on the page, because this right here, I bet you, fires that tag also, which makes it, it works for tag conversion. So we know this page, this tag fired. If we go to any other page on their website right now, let's see if that request sample is on their About Us page. That's a request a free sample. Let's try hitting this one to see if it fires. So we created an action. Now, if we go back into Google Tag Manager, this is where the page opened. And you have your click. That was your past click. Nothing fired. So that does not work unless you're on the sustainability page. So let's go ahead and set one up now to track that on the About Us page. So we go back down to the button, which this is going to be a little easier because this is, well, we got it in the footer and we got it here. So now this is something that's different, or it's a different area, but they're the same buttons. So it makes it a little more difficult to track something by itself when it's got multiple on the same page. So now that I clicked on that, let's go back and get the click. Got the page that opened. We have the click. This is all the data. So in Google Tag Manager, if you hit variables, here's all of our data that we could pretty much pull off of to create something to track what they're doing. So I'm going to do click text again, because this is only 2 spots that this can be put. And there's not much else in here I've never had good luck with form elements. I don't know if it's just the sheer amount of content here that comes with it, the extra spaces that get created, such as some of these pages when it breaks here, see that space that gets added after the E, that causes issues in Google Tag Manager. So I think this having this long of a section here causes issues with Google Tag Manager. Otherwise, you'd be able to track that by itself. And that's something that I'm actually going to ask development when I get done to see if there's something that I'm doing wrong on that. But form elements and click elements, unless it's some of the websites I work on, like SiteViz, they don't have this issue. The form elements are usually way smaller than this, and they're usually one line with one break. You take the break out, put it in there, they work. But when I do WordPress websites, I get kind of, they're a little more difficult. And same with the buttons. A lot of times it's hard to create custom buttons. As far as I know, I'm not a WordPress expert.
On that note, Matt, can I ask a quick question that other people might be wondering as well?
Sure.
Would a simple solution to the multiple buttons issue, having several buttons that are named the same thing and go to the same place, if they were to tweak the verbiage, so instead of request a sample, they could do request a free sample or request a free sample today, changing that verbiage, would that solve that problem so it's easier to track that individual element?
Yep. If I could come to this page and look for request a free sample, and there is only one. This is the only spot this is on this page. You could track it all day long because you're tracking only when you're on this page and when they hit this text. So there's no way that you could track it anywhere else because this alone, if it isn't fired, which is a great way to look at this, let's go into Google Tag Manager and look at this. Okay, this page loaded. These are the tags we have that we've created. If, like Steve said, if this would have been different names, this right here tells you exactly why stuff doesn't fire when it loads. So if we go look for this, you see that none of these events happened for this to happen. So if these were different names and you clicked on this, one of them would make all this fire, the other one would not. Because you wouldn't have this would not equal what you're clicking. And same with if you're on the About Us page and you hit this request a sample, it's not going to fire because this is set up for sustainability, not About Us. So let's go into Google Tag Manager and get that set up, this request a free sample for this page. So we go into Google Tag Manager. A fast way to do this once you got one set up is copy. Once you get this copy up, make sure you I never move forward till I see this because I've copied over ones that were already created and then you have to remake them or fix them because it's not forgiving in Google Tag Manager. So we'll do request a free sample on the
problem
this page. May I have a question? Oh. Okay, so we're going to go back here. We're going to get the information that was on that click. So the request, and then we're going to go down and find the page URL. Back here. Now you have this one, this trigger made. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to copy the name of the trigger without the word trigger. I'm going to open this request a sample one that was just created, and I'm going to also copy it.
Oh.
And I'm going to come down here, and you also have to replace the label because you don't want it to say it's from the same page. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense. And lastly, you remove the trigger that was on the one you copied, and you add the proper one. So this was request a free. Yep, request a free sample on the About Us page. And the reason I copy those, the names, let's go into this because it's really easy to come back and check your work when you can do this. Push Control F, V. Now you know this one, it's hooked to this one. This should match this. So if you ever have one that when you search for it, the tag name does not match the trigger name, you screwed up. You need to go back and figure out which one this should be hooked up to, and always make sure the naming preference is very important for this. And it's not just the naming preference for the tags and triggers. It's also very important what you're sending to Google Analytics. This event that we're sending right now, which I'll go into that now, since we're getting down to the last 5 minutes, so I can make sure that this what you're sending in here, you have your category, your action, your label. Your label is your name. This is how you're going to tell what this was. Your category is going to be what you're tracking. And categories could be so many different things. It doesn't have to be, which you could use your variables. But let's go back to this website and see all the different ones you have buttons. You could have links if you want to track where people have links. I don't know if this has a form on it. Let's make sure. You have forms. There's a whole nother section of variables for forms. You can track everything on this. I always recommend, if you're going to track a form, WordPress is a little different. You got to create a separate page and usually work with WordPress forms to make it go to the new page instead of sending an email or just staying on the same URL. But SiteViz allows, once you fill out this form and you push submit, it takes you to a confirmation page. If you track that confirmation page, you actually have proper data because that person has landed where you want them. Never track the pages like this. This would be irrelevant to track this page because I could land on this 500 times. You don't care. You want to know when I'm actually contacting you. So that's I'm trying to think of other areas we could track. In the footer, footer or header, this one does not have it, but usually most websites have social media. If you want to know if your social media, if it's in the footer, if anybody's ever clicking on it from your website and going to it, you could add tracking really easy. And I'll go to our website to kind of explain that. In our footer, we have these social icons. It's a little harder because it's not Google Tag Manager, so I'm going to have to kind of use some code, but we have this class social media icon, Facebook. That can be tracked. It's unique on its own. It's not in the header. It's only in the footer. It's by itself. So instead of just tracking a URL or a text, you're actually tracking something that's specific for the spot. There's no other place on the website. We're never going to call Dell authorized reseller face or social media icon Facebook. It's never going to happen. And the same with the link going to Facebook. That's unique. That's not going to happen many places on our website, but I guarantee somewhere in our blogs has been linked to Facebook. So we don't want to track just when something goes to Facebook. Otherwise, you're tracking any spot that goes to. So this type of stuff you'd want unique. And the reason I'm mentioning social icons, because these are great to track to see if anybody ever gets to your footer. If your social icons are only in your footer and no one ever touches them, you should probably think about putting them in your header. If you want traffic to your Facebook, if that's one of your goals. If you I think the submissions for your subscribe, this is another great one to track because if it's in your footer and no one ever goes to your footer, no one's ever going to subscribe to your email or your newsletter. So that's something very, very important, in my opinion, to track. Any call of actions you have in your footer or the lower section of your website, always track because 90% of people do not scroll down a page. And I'm just, that numbers, I should probably look before I say the exact number for that, but people don't scroll. I mean, that's why Amazon created the one-click checkout, because people want fast. They want whatever they're doing to be done immediately. They want I'm not going to say they're handheld, but some users do. You have different levels of users, and you have to figure out how to get that lowest level user to the spot you want them to that call of action. This is a great tool to do that. Now let's jump back in after my little rant for this. So for Google Tag Manager, now we're going to go back into, and this is why I said originally that I'm not good at these little speeches because I'm just not good at them. So let's go into Google Analytics and see what this all does. So all these things we set up for GlucosaMe, which this is relatively new, so they don't have a lot of data yet. We'll look at another client that does have a lot of data. But now that we created this, we have this outbound link, which is created by, I believe, another marketing company they're doing, or maybe a past one that I didn't help with. But this new button link is what I just set up. So now you could go into your Google Analytics under behavior, events, overview, or top events, anywhere actually, as long as you know how to use a secondary dimension in Google Analytics, which is right here. And just type in event. Now you have all your events you're creating. You have your action and you have your label. Actions are, I mean, if you're going to start looking at different like clicks, submits, just depends on what category you put them in. Those might be a little more important. But right now, I'm not going to really go to those because all we're setting up is clicks. But if we go to label and add this in here, now we know that somebody has clicked the contact us submit button and the request a sample and the navigation button. So these both have been clicked on, one twice. This looks like it was me, but it was, yes, we got that part done. And I'm going to show you a little more detailed. I'm just going to drag this over here. I don't know if the client wants me to show, so I'm just going to get it up and show the lower section of it. This is a little more detailed view of what you could do in analytics with this reporting. Okay, not going to be able to hide much on who they are. Okay, so the category, same situation. It was button. They wanted stuff tracked from emails coming back. So it's the same concept that I'm pretty much when the email gets sent back to the website or the user goes back to the website, they want to track when people click a submission form to get another online promotion, I believe is what we were setting up for. So in here, we have the button. We know that's the category that we've set up for them. Now we want to know what labels or what did we set up for these to see. So in the last, I think this is 7 days. Yep. Last 7 days, this is tracked that this store has got 219 clicks back and they've clicked through to get the next ad and so forth. So now they know every store and they know, should we put a lot of money into a store that no one clicks through? It allows them to make educated decisions for their digital marketing strategy.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I was just saying this is a little bit technical for me. I'm just barely getting into using Google Analytics on my website, something I need to learn more about. So I'd be very basic on that. So I found it interesting, but anyway, you weren't getting any questions. I just wanted to share that.
Right, and I think that today's call is not about you're supposed to memorize everything that Matt went through, but just to learn some of the possibilities out there that we can track individual clicks on individual buttons on your website, just so you can really get down to it and see what people are, how they're interacting with your website, where the traffic's going, and things like that. So if you need any more help, like further assistance, we're happy to do that as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Set up these kinds of things for you.
This is a really good introductory opportunity for you to see what kind of tools that Google uses. Everything that Matt's shown you today has nothing to do with the back end of your website per se, and has everything to do with things that the general public has access to, provided they understand what they're messing with. Now, if it is something that's a little bit over your technical know-how, that's fine. You're with 98% of the populace, but Google has really opened up a lot of the tools and how they allow you to track your visitor behavior. So you know if whatever your goals are with your website are being met. And so you can track and get reports. This all ties into Google Analytics, so you can better understand your consumer behavior, your audience behavior. So having Matt set up stuff like this, or having anybody on our team help you with this kind of thing, is really good for reporting and for just kind of gauging what people are doing on your website, what's effective, what's not. And that was really, I think, the main purpose of understanding what this is, how this works. This and other videos that we do for training are available because we know it's a lot to cover in a tiny bit of time, and a lot of it is technical, and we're so fluent that sometimes we fly through stuff. So there will be a video of this later if you feel like you want to go back and kind of try to take notes and dive a little bit deeper. But does it make sense what the purpose of this specific tool is?
Oh, absolutely. The concept is great, and it's just good to know what all can be tracked and how much detail you can track. So that's great.
Yeah. There's been people, we've had clients who come to us and say, I've designed this really cool website. It looks great. I am getting traction, but nobody's coming through all the way. Why is that? So one of the things that we can do in kind of an investigative way is then set up tools like this to say, okay, which of your calls to action are they clicking on? And then when we go to that page, what is it on that page that they're either is encouraging them to continue further or is stopping them in their tracks? What is it what's going on here? Trying to understand more about what's happening and why, I think, is really what this all comes down to.
And this is this tool, and it's a very powerful tool. I've used it to when I first came here, I took on a very large furniture company in Ames, and they had a problem with their website. The conversions were going down pretty quick, and they wanted to figure out why. And we hooked up a heat map through Google Tag Manager, Hotjar, and it just tracked where people were going on the website. And we have slowly changed the whole way their website is, the traffic, the people, how their website interacts with people. And now their revenue is on the way to beat like a 7 to 8 year period, which is phenomenal. And it was just because we hooked up a heat map to see where your mouse was, or where the page was going up and down, what people did on the page of the client. It's very powerful. I mean, does anybody use Google Ads that's currently in this meeting? In Google Ads, which I'll probably have to go directly into account. Oh, I can look at ours. You have conversions. These conversions are hooked up through, which I will have to go into one of the. Let's look at a conversion I just set up. All these quick applies for this client I just had to set up. And we'll go to their website and I'll just show you the high end of what you could do with Google Tag Managers. This is a little more, like I said, naming preferences is very important because when you get this far, they get confusing. But on this website, they want to know when people leave their website to apply for a job. So under company drivers, they have this list of jobs. Under one of the jobs, they have two buttons, full apply, quick apply. Both of these leave the website. So it's a bounce rate pretty much for their website. The minute somebody leaves here, they're going to close this page because they're going to fill out an application on another website when they're going to be done. But when we're paying for Google Ads, that's part of Google Ads algorithm is the conversion. So when you set up a conversion that says, these ones I just set up right here, that now says that this is a conversion. When somebody clicks here and goes to the apply, that is a conversion. That's what we want with our Google Ads. That is the ultimate goal for our Google Ads, for this client anyways. So that's another very powerful thing that you could use, because when you go in here, let's look how you normally hook this up. If you didn't have Google Tag Manager, you're going to have to figure out how to do this. If you have Google Tag Manager, you have this button that says use Google Tag Manager. You click it. It gives you two numbers that you copy and paste, or a conversion ID and a conversion label. You copy and paste these in here. So in Tag Manager, that tag, it's very simple. You create a Google Ads conversion tracking that we found by going to the new Google Ads conversion tracking. And all I did was, once I created that, I added the conversion ID, the conversion label, and the value I want. Again, you can't really judge the value of somebody applying, so I just put 1 so I can look at, when I'm looking at conversions in Google Ads, I want to make sure that the conversions equal each other. So when we do, let's sort by conversions, I want to make sure this 1 equals the value. So all conversions equals this. If they don't, then I'm getting a conversion somewhere that it shouldn't be, because I know I'm telling it I want it to be 1. You can tell it anything you want. If you want really big numbers, you can put as much as you want, but then you got to do a lot of math. But I want it to equal each other. Then I know that there's no false positives in that number. Lastly, you're making your trigger that is just the click URL, where it's going. This is the website it's leaving to, and this is the page that button's on. That's all that needed done for this trigger to make a conversion tracking in Google Ads compared to adding code. So it makes it, like I said, that is the top benefit, is that once you got this on your website and it's just 2 short scripts of code, when you create your account in Google Tag Manager, your code is always up here under your GTM. If you click this GTM, or this is, you'll get a unique number. It opens this code. If you look at almost any website that has Google Tag, every website has Google Tag Manager will have this right underneath the head, this right underneath the body if it's placed properly. This is what makes everything work for everything we just showed you. So everything in here is all working because this is on the website. This code brings JavaScript snippets, anything onto your website, and makes them fire. So it takes a short bit of code and makes it long by what you're telling it to do. If there's nothing else that you're telling it to do on certain pages, this is all that fires. So it also doesn't, by adding all those scripts, tags, snippets to your website, you're going to slow your website down. With this, you're firing one thing, and it's Google's one thing. So that's a huge, Google dings you for page speed. They're not going to ding you for their issue with page speed. So again, I could keep going, or I could ask again. Does anybody have any questions?
One question I have is, how does Google tagging work with Google Analytics? Because it's sort of, my vague understanding of both is they could sort of track similar things, but how do they work together?
Okay, Google Analytics, and this is the ones that you creating an event in Google Tag Manager. So you're making an event to send back here. So we're going to go into an account that I know has it. And then under behaviors, and this actually, I don't even have to go to behaviors. Let's go to any report. Let's go to channels. Let's add a secondary dimension and add that data that we're collecting for an event label. Let's add it in here and see what's on your that'd be a label. So now this direct organic, your legs of your digital marketing, as I always state, and if you guys have ever been on the conversation with me, how I kind of describe digital marketing, you have legs. You have different sections of your digital marketing. You have organic, referral, direct, and this helps you figure out which one's crippled. So you have all this organic traffic right here coming from, so you know exactly where these are coming from. Organic, email. Are those the only 2 channels? I imagine there'd be more channels here. Okay. We have social also. So this is giving you exact areas where your conversion's happening, or your events, or whatever you want to call it. I usually call to actions or call to actions. So that this is going to be where how you can look at it there. Another spot you can look at it is under behavior. You have events. You go to overview, all your events are being created right here. So you have your category, your action, and your label. We're going to go into buttons because these are the ones that I've set up. And then we're going to add a secondary dimension once we get into this category, because we want to load the whole category. Now we know that there's 1,209 actions that have happened with buttons on the website. Let's add a secondary dimension, a label. And now you know that this person, which let's see if we can go. I'll just show you the example. This is a great Fairway utilizes this beautifully. They do an amazing job on how they track stuff on their website, and it shows because they realize, okay, well, we put this print ad in all these newspapers. Everybody's going through here. This is our traffic right here. Why are we paying for that? This right here determined them to make that decision to stop spending so much extra money because it was a waste of money for them. So now when somebody comes in here, puts their email in here, you can tell I've done it a few times, and pushes submit, it fires one of these tags. It tells them that on store, let's look what store info this is. So on store 119, or I'm sorry, 124, store 124, I don't even know if we're going to have any in here that right there. So 17 people have entered their email and clicked submit on this page. Does that kind of answer your question how it works with Google Analytics?
I'm learning a little bit.
Okay, there's a lot of uses in Google Analytics. It's like I said, almost every report, and it depends on what data you're collecting. It could vary just depending on what you're trying to collect. And you could there's so many different versions of how to track stuff in UTM codes. You could be sending UTM codes from your emails, which is a whole nother conversation. And that could be cluttered. And you want to figure out how to get away from this goals section. Well, this is a great option. This allows you to organize it where your categories are listed out, which usually if you have more categories here, you'd have button, submit. I'm trying to think of other ones you could add, social media icons. There would be a list right here at the top, all event categories. And you'd be able to change them here, and these would follow your change. So category would change the social icon. Now you'd see exactly where they were clicking from, what pages. So all this data would change. And again, this is just the kind of the tip of what you can do in Google Analytics. So I don't want to say this is it, because I always say that I'm great with Google tools, but I'm by far no expert. I really think if somebody says they're an expert in Google tools, they're lying, because there's too much to learn.
We jokingly say that Google is not an expert in Google tools.
I know their support isn't.
So any other questions for us today?
It's a hard crowd.
So I'm going to share this little tidbit here. It's kind of a selfish plug, but our blog contains a lot of good information about the latest Google updates, different Google tools, and how to use them. I don't think we have anything on Tag Manager just yet, but it's a good idea if you haven't already to subscribe to that, just because we put out a new blog every week, and there's some really fantastic information about that sort of thing. Before we end this, that's a really good thing Matt's pointing at. I'm going to let you take it back. Go ahead.
Okay. Another thing in all of your analytics, everybody that's in here, I'm sure most of you are staff members, actually. Oh, we got a few clients in here still. Nice. Okay. Everybody in here, don't laugh at me, Steve. Everybody that's in here has a Google Analytics account, I hope. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. In the admin section, when you're in, let's go to the front so you can see it before I go this far. So when you log in, you're going to be here. If you click admin, there's a whole new reporting section available for you right now. It's called GA4. This is given a whole new dynamic to how you could track your users. It's not only that, it gives you their data streams where you could say, okay, well, I got all these users that I want to get on the confirmation page in SiteViz, because we offer that, and they're never getting there. Well, I did these changes. Now I want to report to see in a month, did anything change? This will send you automatic reports easily, which you can do that in old analytics, but supposedly Google said they've enhanced this. So you can get automatic reports to tell you this is performing horribly, this is performing well. So it does a little more intellect, I don't even know the term for it. It's the data streams, I guess, are easier for users to use. supposedly. I haven't dove in it too deep yet because it just came off beta, and I didn't want to throw a bunch of things at people. They had no idea how to use it, but it's very. Let me see if ours is turned. I'm pretty sure I turned global reach on. I can show you the difference. They made it prettier. Yep, there it is. Global reach. And you always notice in the properties, because you can see how our properties UA dash, we have a bunch of them, but this UA dash number is now gone. And that's one thing you're gonna have to think of down the road. This is gonna be gone. It's something that currently having development work on to get added to the backend web that we just put the number in there and it'll turn on. So it's something that's down the road will be easier, but let's look at ours. This is the new reporting for Google Analytics. Doesn't look much different. It's before last month. I've had this on. I've been messing with this for a little bit. None of the reporting was in here, so the acquisitions, everything that I tell people to go to was gone. So I was kind of scared when this came out because everything that I used was gone. But it's the same concept. You have all the same reporting. It's just a different. Google wants to collect different data from people. So very important to get on. I would definitely check in all your accounts in Google Analytics and look for that connect, which now it's gone because I'm in it. But under the property, you're going to have create a new GA4 is the name of it. And again, if you guys need help with that, just contact us after this and we'd be more than happy to help. It's not a painful or long process. It wouldn't take us that long to get that going for you and add it to your site.
And you can always email any questions or requests like that to seo@globalreach.com. And somebody from our team is happy to answer, jump in, help, jump on a quick call and give you kind of an initial consultation. Sometimes it's things we can do for free. Especially if you're one of our ongoing clients that we already have some budgeted time for. Other times it's minimally expensive, but it's definitely worth taking a look at for this kind of thing, because the way that data is being collected these days, it's really important to understand your audience. And we're able to get insights into audience behavior and conversion and driving people. I mean, your website is not and should not be just a digital calling card or a digital business card. It needs to be a lead generation tool. There's a guy that I follow pretty closely who's a big digital marketing guru kind of guy, and he says that if your website isn't printing money for you, then you're doing it wrong. And so if you understand your audience, you can better give them what it is they're looking for. And these kind of tools and setting up these kind of tools and being able to see how it all fits together is really important. And so Google is coming up with new tools that allow you to edit your reports so that you can see only the data that you want to see and you can see it more clearly. It's actually called Report Editor, and they just literally announced it, I think, 2 or 3 days ago, maybe last week. There's the data hub that they have now. So there's a lot of different things that everybody gets access to 100% for free, but they're useless if you don't know they're there. And if you don't go in and start playing around and looking for this sort of thing, then you're kind of missing out. And so we can definitely help you out. And as far as Lisa had asked a question here in chat, she said, to summarize again the benefits of upgrading to GA4, well, Google is collecting more data from more sources than ever, and they're slowly moving over their collection process to GA4. It's basically the newest iteration from what I understand. Matt, I'm sure will correct me if I'm wrong, but it also is easier to navigate, easier to see, and looks prettier.
Well, and because if they created a new property, UA dash or the tracking ID is going away.
Yeah.
So down the road, there has been no direct release from Google saying that it's going away. But when Google creates a new tool, they don't keep their old tool. It goes away. It gets slowly filtered out, and that's which I think they got to figure out a way to link them together so you don't lose data first, because every account that I've hooked up doesn't give you the option to bring your data with you, which it doesn't make sense to me. That's what is the point of data if you lose it all?
So is that why my Windows XP doesn't work?
Yes.
I'm kidding. The whole support thing.
So summarize again. So right now we use all the old analytics eventually. No, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to. I'm not. Don't quote me on that. That's just my opinion. Google, Anybody, actually. I mean, if you think about it, Microsoft. Steve just made a joke about it. I mean, Windows XP was back in the day. They don't support it anymore. It's gone. It's because they made something new. And Google Analytics made something new, and they're pushing this. It came out the 14th. It came off beta, and it's the first. If you create a new property, you have to go into special settings to get to the old tracking ID. It's not there anymore. So we'll make a new test one, and I'll show you. And this is why I think we're running out of time quickly. So let me go to the admin. Let's create a test property in Google Analytics. So you're going to get a little creating a test property tutorial also. Oh, got to get an account that we haven't filled. This is why I think it's going away, because Google wouldn't hide this like they do if it wasn't. So in here, when you create a new account, which you guys don't do this a lot because you created your one account, you're not going to create account after account. So we're going to do a test.com, go to next, proper name, test. If you don't hit the See Advanced option to select Create Universal Analytics Property, and you just jump right by this, it's not a UA code anymore. It's gone. This is collecting all different data. You have all these options to collect all of this data, all these measurements, what this can be used for. And I select all of these except for other, because it brings all of this for you. It's going to change your analytics. That's what I think they're doing. That's just my opinion right now. It's just they're modifying how analytics are done. They're adding the data that they said they haven't been getting. Now they're giving it to you.
All right. Well, everybody have a good day. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Bye.